It was a humid late afternoon in the heart of Kings Row, a lively downtown neighborhood known for its open-air markets and vintage record shops. People moved in waves, sipping iced coffee, walking dogs, chatting with friends. Laughter echoed from a rooftop bar as music spilled out from storefronts. Marlon Hayes, a former Marine Corps intelligence officer, now working in cyber defense, walked at a relaxed pace along the sidewalk. He wore a dark olive t-shirt, worn-in cargo pants, and black trainers. A rugged, tan canvas satchel bounced lightly against his side with every step. He had one destination: Silverleaf Books, a small independent shop tucked between a vegan bakery and a bicycle repair co-op. He'd been wanting to grab a sci-fi novel he hadn't had time to read in years. As Marlon approached a corner near a vintage sneaker store, the wail of a siren briefly rose, followed by a sharp screech. A black and white patrol SUV abruptly pulled up beside him, tires spitting up dust. The door creaked open, and out stepped Officer Brent Mallory, his hand already near his belt, eyes cold and calculating. "Hey, you! Hold up!" The officer called out, voice flat but forceful. Marlon turned slightly, his expression neutral. "Yeah," he responded. "You're moving fast, in a rush to be somewhere." Mallory asked, stepping closer. Marlon kept his posture relaxed. "Just heading to the bookstore," he replied simply. Mallory's eyes dropped to the bag at Marlon's side. "What's in the satchel?" he asked, tone tightening. "A book, a laptop, maybe a protein bar," Marlon said. "You want to see?" Mallory wasn't expecting that. He adjusted his stance. "I'll ask the questions," he said sharply. A few onlookers nearby slowed. A barista from the cafe across the street paused mid-sip. Phones started to appear in hands like reflexes. Marlon's calm didn't waver. "Then let's do this the right way," he said, gesturing slightly toward the slowly gathering bystanders. Mallory hesitated for a moment. The tone of the situation had shifted. "Put the bag on the ground," he barked suddenly. Marlon gave a long look, then complied. He unhooked the strap, lowered it gently. His movements were deliberate, precise. "Hands behind your back," Mallory demanded. "Am I being arrested?" Marlon asked evenly. "You're being detained." "You match a description," the officer said. A woman filming on her phone let out a dry laugh. "What description?" she muttered under her breath. "All right," Marlon said, brushing invisible dust off his hands. "Let me help make this easy." He slowly reached into his back pocket, produced his wallet, and pulled out an ID card. He handed it over. Mallory scanned the ID. United States Marine Corps, Senior Intelligence Analyst. The name matched. His jaw tightened. "You still think I'm suspicious?" Marlon asked quietly, watching him. The officer gave a curt grunt, not answering. He began to open the satchel, pulling the zipper back. The growing audience leaned in. Inside, everything was neat and clean. A hardbound book titled Adaptive Thinking for Critical Missions, a matte black thermos, and a minimalist laptop. Mallory yanked the book out. "What's this?" "I wrote it," Marlon replied. "You wrote this?" Mallory said, clearly disbelieving. "Yep. Want me to sign it? Or do you just want to keep pawing through my stuff like it's stolen?" That earned a few chuckles from the crowd. Mallory flushed but kept digging, pulling out a leather-bound journal. He flipped through it. Neat cursive filled the pages. One quote, handwritten and underlined, caught his eye. "Leadership means knowing when to stand your ground and when to lift others up. Not everything is a threat. Some people are just trying to live." Mallory froze slightly. The words sat heavy. Marlon let the moment sit, then said, "Anything illegal?" The officer tossed the journal back into the bag like it had burned his hands. "You can go," he muttered. Marlon didn't budge. "Nah, not so fast. You stopped me. You searched my belongings. In front of all these people. I think they deserve to know why." The crowd murmured louder. Someone near the front shouted, "Answer him." Another added, "You owe him more than that." Mallory stood rigid, the confidence draining from his posture. He looked around, phones recording, eyes watching. He was no longer in control. "What's the description, officer?" Marlon pressed, his voice calm but cutting. Mallory opened his mouth. Nothing came out. "Let me guess," Marlon continued, black man, walking, existing. The crowd gasped. A local radio DJ who happened to be passing by whispered, "He's not wrong." Marlon stepped forward. "You didn't stop me to check for danger. You stopped me to assert control. You wanted to intimidate me. You thought I'd panic, maybe lash out. But I've dealt with far worse in places you've never heard of, under pressure you'll never experience." Mallory looked like he'd swallowed a nail. "I was doing my job," he said finally, though even he didn't sound convinced. "If this is your job," Marlon replied, "you're doing it wrong." Cheers and claps broke out in waves. Someone called out, "Hold him accountable." Another shouted, "Abuse of power." Marlon reached into his pocket, raised his own phone. "Here's how this goes," he said. "You explain why you stopped me, here and now, on camera, or this gets filed publicly, legally, and loudly." Mallory looked down. I was acting on suspicion," he stammered. "What suspicion?" Marlon said, stepping even closer. "Silence. You didn't ask anyone else where they were going. You didn't ask that guy in a hoodie or that woman who walked by with a backpack. You stopped me. I wasn't targeting." "Yeah, you were," Marlon said, his voice now low and sharp. "You thought I wouldn't stand up. You thought this would be routine. But you're not going to just walk away." The crowd was fully behind him now. Chanting started to rise. "Say it. Say it. Say why you stopped him." Mallory was cornered, not by threat but by truth. Marlon took one final step forward and said, "Today, you crossed the wrong man. Tomorrow, it might be someone who can't speak up. So no, you don't owe me an apology. You owe all of us the truth." And for once, the badge had no power to silence what everyone already knew. The crowd didn't move. The silence was no longer tense. It was charged with realization. In that moment, something shifted, not just in the air, but in the people standing there. Witnesses who thought they were just bystanders now understood they were part of something bigger. Phones stayed up, not out of curiosity anymore, but conviction. Officer Mallory took a step back, the authority draining from his frame like air from a punctured tire. His hand, once poised with power, now trembled at his side. His gaze dropped, not from shame, but from exposure. He'd been seen for what he was, and he knew it. Marlon didn't gloat. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He simply stood there, still and resolute, his presence louder than any protest chant. In his silence, there was leadership. In his calm, a kind of defiance that no uniform could suppress. "Remember this," he said finally, his voice cutting through the air like a final note in a song. "This doesn't end with me. It doesn't end here. If you see it, speak. If you feel it, stand. No more turning away." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Heads nodded. Someone clapped. Then another. And another. Mallory didn't say a word. He couldn't. As Marlon slung his bag back over his shoulder and walked away, he didn't look back. He didn't need to. The point had already been made, and more than that, it had been understood. What happened that day wouldn't disappear into silence like so many stories before it. It would echo, through posts, through conversations, through awareness. And maybe next time, someone would think twice before acting on a prejudice disguised as procedure. Because the truth was out now, and it wasn't going back in a bag.